This week, we actually go for a full hour of the podcast. We hope you enjoy all the bonus material. Welcome to the 167.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Hey, welcome to the 167. I'm Pastor Lucas Motley, the discipleship pastor at New Life Community Church. And with me today is my wife, Carissa Motley.
Hello.
Co-teacher from this weekend.
Yes.
And Megan May, our connections director.
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Megan knows everybody. That's her job.
I try. I do try.
So this week we have been working our way through 1 Corinthians. And so it's so random sometimes.
Hang on. I thought you were going to do some shout outs.
Oh, yeah. Shout out.
We literally just prepped you for this.
Shout out to our good friends of the show, Nick and Abby, who we got to meet in step one. I always love to meet people who are actually listening to the podcast. So shout out Nick and Abby. We're glad that you are listening or watching on YouTube. And if you are listening or watching YouTube, please be sure you go on and subscribe, hit the like button, do all the things.
All the things, yes. Like, subscribe, comment, share, repost.
Text me live during the show.
That'd be really funny.
Text your questions
That'd be
to
Aaron
Lucas.
Stroman, like, texting you.
While I'm on stage. But yeah, we've been going through 1 Corinthians, and it's just utterly random a little bit because Paul is doing this kind of Q&A. And so we got assigned this passage. It's like, chapter 7 and 8. And I'm like, what? So he is unpacking some of the same ideas, but we went through that. We encourage you to go watch the message at the website, newlifegardener.com, and check out all the media there.
Also to be reading 1 Corinthians at home because we are not verse by verse exegeting the text in this series. So we're up to chapter 8. If you haven't read any of it on your own time, go back and do that this week. Strongly encourage you to do that.
And that is something that goes back to something that people always ask me. They're like, how do you come up with like a whole sermon series? I'm like, it's perfect. You just start to write one sermon and you realize that you can preach it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And chapter 7 and chapter 8 are like that, where chapter 7, you could do a 5-sermon series on it because he talks to single people and widowed people and divorced people and married people and engaged people. But so there was a lot to work through. But we're going to talk a little bit today about chapter 7 to start that way, and then talk about Pastor 8, chapter 8 at the end, Pastor 8 or 9. And so I kind of wanted to, again, just let people know that the marriage conference is coming up.
Yeah, in February.
Yep. And one of the reasons that we do that here is kind of our interactions with a lot of our listeners, the people in our church. And we kind of said it on Sunday that a lot of people are having a very difficult experience in marriage. And so we're trying to help with that. So I want to ask you guys to kind of start. What is something that's surprising about marriage, or something that was more difficult than you had anticipated?
Or just was different than you anticipated. We just kind of talked. It doesn't have to all be bad, I don't think. But Megan's the freshest into marriage.
Yes, I am.
Happy what? How many months?
5 months. Last Friday.
Woo!
When you're doing your anniversaries in months.
Yes.
So,
We're doing it in months for the first year just because it's fun and we don't have kids or anything like that. So we get to do fun stuff together. But
So congratulations on 5 months of being married last
you.
Friday.
Thanks. It's fun.
So Meg, what would you say?
Yeah, so I think for me and Jonah, we both talked about this too. We were like expecting, finance, budgeting to be the hardest because both of our families kind of came from struggling and the lack of a lot of wisdom from their own parents, and like they were trying to figure it out. So me and him were like, okay, that is the one thing, everyone says marriage is money, like ends your marriage or, whatever. So that was one thing we both were really like kind of aware of and really expecting to be difficult. But I think because of that, we were so prepared that we were like, oh yeah, we already made the budget. We just do this.
Oh, this is fine. We're actually okay.
Like, okay, cool. So that's great. But the other thing that was more difficult for us that we didn't realize was kind of time management. So for both of us, we're really busy. We're very involved in the church and in our friends' lives and our families' lives. And knowing when to go grocery shopping, when to do your laundry, when to clean, when to have friends, when to hang out, when to have alone time. I don't do that very well. All these things.
And you don't just mean alone time in the couple, you mean alone time for yourself.
I need downtime. Jonah needs alone time. Very different.
Yes.
And we have a 1-bedroom apartment.
Hold on.
This
is important. Explain that.
This is good.
Okay, so I am an extrovert, 100%, probably 90% extrovert, 10% introvert. Okay. Jonah is like probably 70% introvert, 40% extrovert. So you see him on Sundays. He loves people. He's like golden retriever, right? But he gets drained by all kinds of, even by me. Okay.
Right.
That was a hard thing to learn, number one. But that's okay, right? Everyone's different. But he needs time without any person near him, right? He needs time when I am in a different room, okay? Like, that was something that was hard for us to understand, like, and he didn't know that either, right? So it's
Yeah.
not just like I'm pushing him, like, we were
Right,
both
right.
like, why are you drained all the time? Like, we had to kind
You
of
just
talk and figure
discovered
this
this
out.
about yourself.
Yes, like, because he had alone time, right? Even before,
Sure.
when we were dating, like, we still would hang out a lot and do ministries a lot, but he would go home for 5 to 8 hours, play games, do photography, sleep, eat dinner by himself. Like, he could do these things because it was
Right.
just him and his parents and his other brother. And so, like, when we got married, he was like, oh crap, why do I feel awful? Like, what,
Yeah,
something's wrong
yeah.
here. And so we were able to kind of figure that out. I think that was one of the talks he had with you because you guys also went through a similar thing too. And so that of knowing kind of what drains you and what energizes you guys, and that can change, but for us that's what it is right now, mixed with time management of like, how do we make sure that we are both okay? Because if I'm not okay, like, he's not going to be okay, right? Because then I can't care for him, he can't care for me. And then also as a household, how can we do our laundry and do all the things that we're supposed to be doing in a timely manner on top of everything that we're doing, and kind of the prioritization of things, still actively learning that. It's kind of difficult. So that's what I would say.
What do you think, Chris?
I think that's super insightful. P.S. I really like that.
Great job. A+
Yeah.
today.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That's the podcast. Well,
Yeah. So, like Lucas said, we're like 17 years into being married. So that
how many months?
feels, I don't know. I'm bad at math. If you want to do that multiplication real quick, go for it. But I think that one of the biggest surprises, I don't know. I think there's a lot of adjustments you have to make when you get married. So I don't know what like the biggest one was, but I do know like we still joke about like our food tastes are very different.
Oh my gosh. Preach.
So different. So that was like for me, we joke that I have the palate of a small child. Like I want to eat very normal foods all the time and Lucas
Girl
doesn't.
dinner.
And so that was an adjustment, right? Like how do you, like what do you eat, right? Who's cook? And I know Jonah cooks for you guys,
She-
right? Which is
Yes.
awesome.
She can just
He's the
not
bomb.
eat meat.
Yes. So I actually was gonna say that. I was gonna say like, given my preference, I would literally subsist off of like cheese, pasta, potatoes.
I agree with that. Jonah's like Indian, Thai, curry, sushi. And I'm
Right? I know. That sounds too exotic and weird and crazy.
Right?
I just remember there was a few meals that Sheila's like, look, I made this meal. And I'm like, yes, but
Where's the meat?
where's
Protein?
the meat? It was like, here's some pasta on the side of a potato and a vegetable. And I'm like, what?
I
Right?
have never made that combination. So that part I think was just weird, was like, oh, we're actually very different people with very different, preferences. And then we also, scheduling wise, I am a hyper morning person and Lucas
my
is a
gosh.
night person.
Yeah.
And so that like having that not be a source
That
of
was-
conflict and tension has been a like growing experience
That
for
was the
17
funniest-
years.
Funniest season of our marriage, I think you had a really early job and I cannot fall asleep. And so I would literally like fully clothed go climb into bed with her at like 8:30 p.m. or 9 o'clock. It was early.
It's never that early.
And so then like I would wait until she fell asleep and then I would get out of bed and go play World of Warcraft until 2 in the morning. But I would she's like, I want you to be there to fall asleep. I was like, okay. And so,
Hey,
like,
that's one of the rules that we have too, is we try to go to bed together because same, right? Like I have to get up. I try to get up at 5:30. Luckily though, Jonah's kind of, for some reason, been on that stride with me.
Okay.
But he also is a night owl, likes to game, and so that's kind of,
well, that's what I find out really quick because you were just gone at the women's getaway. And the minute like you're not around the house, it's just like, it was like 11:30, I think. And I was just downstairs doing something. I don't even remember. I might've been working her. And I just went, oh, I need to go to bed. Because literally I only go to bed because she goes to bed. So
The other funny thing I think that surprised me about marriage was I don't like to be touched when I'm sleeping. Do not touch me.
get the
When I'm
king-size
actually
bed.
asleep, do not, like, I don't want to be touching when I go to sleep.
Every year at the
Don't
marriage
touch.
conference, we give away a king size bed, and it's to somebody who is in a double bed.
Like a full-size bed, yeah.
Yeah, like not a queen bed. And like you have been
How
married.
are you doing that?
Yeah, people that have been married for 10, 12
How?
years.
We have a
How?
queen. I mean, we're in a one
Queen
bedroom
is
though, and
normal.
it's like
I mean, that's normal. We started out like that. But
Well, once you
seriously,
get the
don't touch
king-size
me.
bed.
I do
when
not
we have
wanna
a
be
bigger
touched.
house or
I'm
bigger
curious
apartment.
about the California king, man. Just the real estate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, there's a lot of adjustments, but I did also go through that, and I think I went through that every time that we added children.
Oh yeah.
Like there, I distinctly remember there was a time where I literally came downstairs, and we had put the kids to bed, and I just looked at Chris and was like, "I'm going to the movies," and I picked up my jacket and walked out. And I thought that like she would be super mad at me when I got home, but I was like, I need some time to myself. I need to go recharge and replenish, and I hadn't like been without being around humans for a long, long time. So there's a lot of things that I think that you have to adjust to, for men especially. It's the idea that not that you're losing your freedom in a bad way, but you become more and more responsible for more and more people. And I think for men that it's hard. It's kind of like, you know, hitting a new PR on your weight. Like you can only do it for so long and then you need a break. So that's a big thing for us. If I also put on this that, you know, Paul is writing to the Corinthian church about marriage. So if you were going to write to a church about marriage, what would be the one thing that you would include in that?
Get a king-size bed.
if nothing else, you take away from the podcast.
I write to you, my brothers and sisters, because I'm concerned for the size.
Are you touching each other in your sleep? Stop it. Don't do that.
To be good bedfellows, you must.
Oh no.
That's so literally.
I'm just kidding.
Maybe this is too TMI. Me and Jonah like will hold hands like as we're sleeping, going to bed. Like that's such a
Aw.
sweet
Okay,
thing.
when we're going to sleep, we touch feet. Like, but then for like 30 seconds, like,
And
we
then
do
you
the
roll over,
thing,
yeah.
and then I'm like, nope, I'm done. Time for stop
Yeah,
it.
we will literally get in bed and I'll just extend my foot to the left. And she'll touch my foot. I'm like, okay. And then she'll be like, I'm good. I'm like, fine. And then if she needs, like, if we go to bed, she's like, no, I need like actual like cuddling or whatever.
My
like,
love
okay.
language is physical touch. Okay, that's
But I'm
my
just
love
like,
language.
what's it tonight? What's on the menu? What do you want?
I love
Anyway,
that.
we've spent a lot of time on this. Sorry, everybody. It's a long, long time. Piece of advice.
Gosh,
Megan, what do
I
you
don't-
think?
I think I would say if I was writing to a church, if I'm like as smart as Paul is, right, with the wisdom that I have at the ripe age of 23 and 5 months of marriage, I think I would say, it's kind of basic, but like if you're not healthy and if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, your marriage is not going to be good. There's nothing that you can do, no matter how much you study your partner, no matter how much you love them, how much romance, how much whatever. If you are not taking your time to take care of yourself and have your personal relationship with the Lord separate from your spouse, it is going to be a mess. Like you have to have that personal relationship with the Lord for God to talk to you on how to treat them, how to love them, how to take care of yourself, your future family, what he's calling you to. That has to be separate, right? You can't always have a Bible time with them. Like you have to make sure that you're okay to be able to take care of your spouse.
I think that was great.
Yeah. I think this is my soapbox lately, so Chris has probably heard this before, but you know, I told her, I'm like, it's always funny to me when I marry people, when they take their vows, I'm always like, for better or worse, for rich or poor, but it's always a comparison word. It's like richer than what? Or poorer than what? And it's like, it's not like, you know, when you're at your poorest and when you're at your richest and when you're at your worst possible moment in your life, because you'll never actually get there. It can always get worse, you know? And so I think that there is this general thing in society that has creeped in that it's kind of like that question of when is enough, you know? And it's like, oh, I've crossed the line in marriage and now it's enough and I'm out.
Right.
And I think that if we actually, before we got married, regarded that as like, it will never be enough. Like, just imagine that you will be trapped in this marriage until the end of time.
Trapped.
I know. Oh gosh, guys,
I'm
it's
just
not
saying,
a
like-
trap. It's not a trap.
But it's like, if you did that, I think that people would be more careful with who they married.
Yeah.
And they would have different expectations of the marriage of like, I am in this, so I'm going to make, like, if you were just like, this is the car that you have, and so you cannot afford any other car, this is your car, you're going to take care of it.
Right.
Right. And so I think that people, they kind of had this holdout of hope of like, well, if my marriage gets too bad, I can always bail. And it's like, if you just said, there's no, like, till death do us part, I'm never leaving this, would you put out more of an effort to it? And I think so if we actually had a biblical view of marriage, then I think that people might change the way they approached it.
Yeah.
That's good. Like it.
Or even just believe the vows that they're saying.
Right.
Because we're saying till death do we part. And
I know, like, can I get that legally? You're
mean,
gonna stick with king
supposed
size
to be.
bed?
No, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but like, I really, something lately that, again, I have just been like, oh, wow, people are having different experiences, right, than I am. But there's a lot that the Bible has to say about words and the power of your words. And so I think that one thing I would encourage and advise people in their marriages is just, who is a person that you always say kind words to, and talk to your spouse like that. Right?
Like, you would never swear at grandma.
Right. So like, I always think about like our 10-year-old, right? She's like the sweetest child on the planet. And like, I would never say anything to hurt her feelings or call her names, or like, you know, even if I act angry with her, I can tell that it hurts her feelings. So I'm like, oh yeah, she, like, that's like, you're not supposed to be like tougher so I can say mean things to my spouse, right? Like, it shouldn't
But I
be
am.
like,
I'm just kidding.
you understand what I'm saying.
Get with the
right?
program,
So,
Lucas. Come on.
You know, it's just the idea of like, our words to our spouses have almost more significance than, especially than a lot of people think they do. And so just to be careful with your words to your spouse, right? Not everything needs to come out of your mouth.
Well, you and I talk about that word. We'll work with couples or whatever, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, we got in a fight, and so we were swearing at each other and calling each other." And I'm going, "Oh, never."
Or like, even people who are like, I hate you, and I was like, oh my gosh, like never.
And people breaking out, "I want a divorce."
Right.
You know, like, and
like
it's
just saying
like,
that. And that has just become like,
Normal,
it just,
yeah.
it just happens. It just flows. And that for me is shocking, because that has never been a part of our marriage. But then I'm just now, I feel like I'm just like having this blindfold removed of like, so many people in their marriages, like we were saying on Sunday, are just not having a great time. It's just not great. It's just not great. And I think like, it's supposed to be great.
we have
It's
challenging
supposed to be.
times,
We
but-
do, for sure.
I would also say really quick, I know we have like 80 other million things to do, but something else I would say to the church too is get older mentors. Like, that is something that me and Jonah did with these lovely people right here. And we would absolutely not be where we're at today if it weren't for you guys and your wisdom, right? And it's not necessarily that they're special, even though you guys are amazing, but like, just someone who has already been through it and has
Yeah.
been through it in the way that you believe Christ wants them to go through it, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
like that, I mean, I've had 3 to 5 hour coffee dates with Carissa, and Jonah will go to the gym
Yeah,
with
I
Lucas for 4 hours, and like, or we're calling them late at night, like, oh my gosh, we're coming to them, we have this issue. Like, there was a lot we had to work through when we were dating and then engaged and even now married. And just being able to go to someone that isn't your parents,
Yeah.
that's super, super important for that bias and stuff,
Right.
to get that help, you know, and that safe help where you're not telling your girlfriends, you're not spewing information, you know, you're able to tell someone safe that has that wisdom for you.
Yeah.
So that.
Gosh, now that we're on this, like, I feel like I have so many million things to say. I do agree with that, though, like, not trying to say negative things. Like, I've told you, like, this is a safe space for you to say things that you're feeling. And like, I love Jonah,
Right.
Like, I love him, and I'm not going to think worse of him as a
Right.
person, versus like your mom might, or your
Yes.
girlfriend might, or
Yeah, they're
your-
gonna take your
You know,
side.
they're going to take your
Exactly.
side, and that's kind of, they're
just not
supposed
good.
to. But like, instead of bad mouthing your spouse to someone else, find someone you can trust to actually give you good counsel
Yes.
about what's happening.
And we've talked about that in a number of areas in your marriage, that there cannot be sides. It's you and your spouse versus,
Yes.
you know, like I said, if one of you struggles with lust, it's you and your spouse versus lust.
Right.
If you struggle with a shopping addiction, it's you and your spouse versus that. It's not them versus you. And
Right.
your
How are you
addiction.
helping each other? How are you
Yes.
partnering against the other thing?
And so oftentimes, like, our family will take, quote unquote, your side, and they're not. You need to find a mentor that is on the side of your marriage.
Right.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
So, and I would,
That's a good one.
yeah, it's good. And if you're listening and you're like, well, I don't have that in my life, it can be just as simple as, you know, like I said, you could ask us. I can, you know, hook you up with a couple in the church. But it is like, if you're observing somebody and saying, man, I really like that, their marriage looks really healthy, just ask them, hey, would you meet with us? Like,
Yeah.
it never hurts to ask. They might say no. They might not have it in their schedule.
Yeah.
But finding a mentor is huge.
Yeah.
So,
Look at all this wisdom you've gained in your 5 months of
Oh my
marriage.
gosh, I wonder where I got it from.
She's so smart, guys.
I always tell people, like, they'll come in for marriage counseling. I'm like, I am not a licensed counselor, but I am happily married. So I can just tell you what we do.
It's important.
Which some of that is not great advice. Like, let's be real. It works for
There are
us, but
some-
might not for everybody.
Yeah, there are some things I
okay?
literally advise people. I'm like, this is what works for us, but
Don't do that.
Dave Ramsey says it's bad.
That is actually
Each
true.
to their own, you know?
Okay, so 20 minutes later.
20
All right.
minutes later. I do want to talk a little bit too, because Paul talks to single people, he talks to
Yeah.
engaged people. And so, Megan, you are the freshest of us on this. Paul's saying that people who are single, they have a calling. So
Yeah.
he's saying that to widows who get,
Who are widowed.
The people, women who are widowed, and even widowers, I would say as well, that your spouse dies and you're going, okay, well, now what do I do with my singleness?
Right.
And so he's talking to them, he's talking to single people, and he's encouraging them to stay single. He says, this is not from the Lord, it's from me. I would encourage you to stay single. That way, you can do incredible things for the Lord. That's your single focus. And he actually says, when you get married, it comes with anxieties, which I think is funny. But so you were just single, you were in Bible college, so you had a calling and you were single, but then you got married. So how are you reading that now? Like, how is that fresh for you? Like this, you're fresh in that change. So how are you reading that, what Paul's writing to us, and how would you advise other young women and young men who are receiving a calling, but they're single?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to try to summarize this pretty fast. Okay. So I dated a few people in Bible college, but none of it was serious really until I met Jonah, and I met him my senior year at the end of it. So there's that. So, but I went through Bible college. I knew I was called to ministry. And so I went on the missions field. I traveled all over, a part of a worship band. That was so fun. I did a lot of things independently, and I'm also just naturally an independent person, right? So I did a lot of those things, and I felt like the Lord was calling me to specific things. And the main thing I would say is I didn't have to ask anyone about it. I didn't have to get anyone else's opinion. I didn't have to get anyone else's permission, right? And so that was something that was really cool that I didn't understand now, right? And so
could you tell the difference? So like if you were dating somebody, and could you tell the difference in your focus level? Or like you said, was there an instance where somebody's like, yeah, come on the mission field, and you're like, but I'm dating, so were there a couple of tension points?
Yes, yeah. So there's actually this guy that I was dating, great guy, and he was not into missions at all, right? And that was something, I mean, you remember, right? I was like high on that. The Lord was calling to me that for probably a good 2 years. I went on to different areas for a couple different months, lived in different places, and I was dating this guy at the time. I think it was my junior year, early of my junior year, so pre-Jonah, right? And he was not about that. And that honestly helped me and our relationship because I was, in a relationship with him. And I mean, there was a whole bunch of other reasons as well, but that was kind of one of the things that I was like, okay, you're not into that. You're also not into this. We just believed differently, and the Lord was calling us to different things. And so ultimately I was like, the Lord wasn't calling me to stay in this relationship. I knew that it was not something that I was going to continue into marriage, just due to all the different beliefs and kind of where he was at in his faith and where I was at. So I didn't need his permission though, because we were dating and I knew it wasn't going to be a marriage. And so for that, the only permission I had would be from even my dad didn't want me to go to Colombia. I went to Medellin, which is extremely, extremely unsafe. And my dad was like, I don't want you to go. I really don't want you to do this. And I'm like, Dad, we have training. I was like, I feel called. I need to do this, right? And I'm an adult. I'm not married. And so I went. However, now, actually, when I met Jonah my senior year, I was about to go on this 6-month missions trip, right? And I remember praying about it, and I do this funny thing where the Lord tells me something, I get excited about it, and then when it's actually time to say yes or no, I plug my ears and get scared, okay? And so this was about that, right? The missions field, and I remember being like, I don't know if I'm gonna go, it's right after I graduate, and I'm not sure, and it's a lot of money, and me and Jonah had just started dating at the time. And that was one of the things where before we started dating, I needed him to know that, because that's a big deal, leaving for 6 months and not being here. And so I remember we talked about our politics views, we talked about our children views, we talked about our family, we talked about everything, because this man just wanted to be my boyfriend, okay? He just wanted to date me already. And I was like, there's one more thing I have to tell you about. I was like, but I'm not sure about this. I don't know if I'm going to go, whatever. And he was like, well, let's just pray about it. which ding, 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 right answer. We prayed about it, and the Lord had actually told him a week prior to him knowing that I was going to leave on the missions field. And he was like, oh, I kind of actually already knew that. Like, I think you need to go. And so we prayed about it. Anyways, long story short. So I did end up going. It's too long of a story. I did end up going. And nowadays, as me and Jonah we were not engaged yet as I was gone, but we were engaged right after I got back.
Yeah, no, that was a long couple of months for me to sit with Jonah.
They went to the gym a lot.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was the best shape of my life.
Yeah, it was great. For me, honestly, it was hard for him too. But after that, coming out of that, now it's me and him talking. Right now, it's me and him saying, like, I still love missions. I feel like I'm called to go, but the Lord called me back to New Life. I know that. And Jonah knows that too, right? He knew that I was going to go, and he agreed with he knew that from the Lord. But like, ultimately, I knew that I was supposed to come back for this full-time position, and he knew that too. And so now me and Jonah both have this mindset of like, yeah, someday we feel like a calling to go back out to Mexico or go back out somewhere. Like, that inkling is there, and we're open to whatever the Lord has. But that is something that if the Lord told me tomorrow, go to the missions field, I would then be going to my husband and saying, hey, this is what the Lord told me. Yeah. I can't just pack my bags anymore. I can't just go, right? Yep. So that's something I would say different about being single is you can just do whatever you want, right? Like, and I don't want to say that, of course, like, with your holiness and with the Lord.
You can do what the Lord has called you to do.
That's right.
Yes. And there's no one else that you have to have responsibility for or to, right? Yeah. No kids, no husband, no wife, whatever. And that is something that is so special that people just don't recognize. Like, no, it's cuffing season. You don't have that person to go to the pumpkin spice cider mill with or whatever. All the great things about marriage is being with someone and a partner that is amazing. But, singleness is great because you can have such a special relationship with the Lord and know him. And you honestly need that time to be single to figure out who you are and who the Lord has called you to be. So then when you have that person with you, you're both coming together, right? You're not feeding off of each other's personal relationship with the Lord. Like, Jonah has a great relationship with God. I can't just feed off of that. I have to have my own. And that's what he needs from me too. Okay, I'll stop.
That was really good. I think that's really good. Yeah, really good.
As you said, cuffing season, I'm like, oh, do you think Paul was ever in cuffing season? Like, oh, everybody's a couple but me. Probably not. He says, I wish that you were like me.
Yeah, I'm like, I think he sounds the opposite.
I think he's okay with his singleness. So essentially, that whole story kind of just proves Paul's point, right? Like, it's easier to do the Lord's work when you're single.
Yes.
And you're doing a different kind of, calling when you're married, right? Like, and raising kids. Like, I do think that's a calling, but it is harder. You're right. There's a lot more to consider, more responsibilities that you're having to, just filter everything through.
Well, I think one of the important things that you said there was the fact that you both need to have your own relationship. And so a really common problem that Paul addresses here is people who either come to know the Lord after they're already married. They're both people who are non-believers. They get married, then they come to know the Lord. One of them does, yeah. Or people that start off in that thing and one of them walks away from the Lord, or they have church hurt, or maybe even you're just in a season where you have matured and they haven't, right? And so he's writing about this in verses 13 through 16. I'm going to read them to you and we're going to talk about it. But he says, if any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean. But as it is, they are holy. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such a case, the brother or sister is not enslaved. God has called you to peace. For how do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband, or how do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? And the thing is interesting to me is at different points I read that last verse 16 where it's like, how do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? And I've read that in an optimistic voice sometimes where it's like, people are like, should I stay in my marriage? I'm like, yeah, how do you know? You might
save your husband.
You might save you. And then there's other times where people are like, my wife divorced me. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not guaranteed that you're going to, like, how do you know if you're going to save her or not? Like, you don't have to be enslaved by that. Yeah. And so I always think it's a very interesting thing to kind of read that of going, yeah, he's kind of covering all the bases here. But how do you guys, when he's talking about bringing holiness to your marriage, what what brings that to mind? What do you think that Paul is trying to tell people about that?
Well, that's, I mean, and I pulled up in NLT. Lucas, you guys know Lucas and I like different versions of the Bible. NLT does say the believing wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the believing husband brings holiness to his marriage, and that's a way that you bring holiness to your children too, is by bringing that into your marriage. And so I do think that that's what's important about it, right? It's not a salvation issue, right? Like, just because you are saved and you're married to someone who's not a believer, it doesn't mean that you staying in that marriage brings them salvation, right? It's not a salvation issue. But, holiness, with the understanding that holiness means to be set apart, right? So like, you can still live a holy life, right? No matter what your spouse, like you're saying, you each individually have your own responsibility to live the way God has called you to live. So if you're a believer, like you're still called to that, right? Like if you were not a believer, I would still be called to be holy in our marriage, and to, pass that to our children, to raise our children. And I know, as I'm saying that like, I do know like that is a tension spot in unequal couples, right? So it's like one parent. So to use a thing that we talked about on Sunday, I do know some couples where it's like one parent has a strong conviction about Halloween and not participating in Halloween, and then the other parent does not share that conviction. And so then that's a tension point. Like, what do we let our kids do? Now we're having a fight about it, right? And so like, then you have to take it to the next step of like, okay, so now what is my next step of bringing holiness into this situation? How do I look at what the Bible says? Like, what is my role as a wife? How do I be holy, bring holiness into my marriage? And so there's a lot that goes into that. And like I said, we can't expound on everything. This would be like a 3-hour podcast if we really got into
Could I say
series.
something about that though really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was actually the case for my
Sorry,
family.
you used up your time.
Sorry, guys. That was the case for my family. So my dad didn't really have strong convictions against that, but my mom very much did, right? And so that was something where they would fight about it a lot. And of course, us kids are like, oh, we want to go get candy. We want to have fun, So we didn't understand either. But my mom, ultimately, she said, I'm going to save my marriage and let you guys go. Like, that was something that the Lord...
Something you said, though, is I think that that's a little bit of a, I don't know, a trick, I guess, or I don't. So like, I don't know. I'm gonna stumble with that word, but you're like, my dad didn't have a conviction on it either way. I'm like, that's not actually true, because if you didn't have a conviction on it either way,
you wouldn't.
You would acquiesce.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think for him, he wanted us, I guess, like, both of my parents love us so much. And I think their focus back then was more of like us kids, right? Than each other.
I don't want my kid othered. I want them to have
Right.
fun.
To be
I want
normal.
them to have the
Be
full
normal.
of
Yeah.
the life, right?
Yeah.
And that is trick-or-treating, right? Because they want to make us happy. And I'm sure that we whined about it and all the things, And so my dad was like, let's just let them do it. Like, they're happy. It's not a problem. My mom was like, no, like, scripturally, we can't let this into our home. Like, mom's always been very, like, Holy Spirit aware, right? And her and my dad, she was actually Catholic. My dad was Baptist and Nazarene. So we are just a different hosh posh of things. And so they grew up differently. Anyways, so for her, I remember she got counsel from one of her like mentors as well. And she said, ultimately, like, your marriage is more important. And this is something that is big to you, but you can't just keep fighting about it, right?
Well,
and so...
And we could spend hours on stuff like that too, where I'm like, there are plenty of couples out there that feel the same way about a number of things.
Right.
Oh yeah, our teenagers, they're gonna go out and drink. They're gonna have sex. They're gonna have party. I just want them to have the full range of the human
Exactly.
experience. And
You're
it's
like-
like, that ruins their
Yes.
lives and their future
Yeah.
marriages.
Yes. But in that, like, my mom wasn't going to cause, that, like...
Yeah, further division between
Yes.
them. Yeah.
And that was, and for her, she
Absolutely.
was like, that's so much more, my marriage is so much more important to me than this. And she's like, then I'm gonna just pray real hard for them.
Sure. Yeah.
We couldn't go as anything scary. Like, they
Right,
were,
right.
things that they had kind of agreed on. But I think for them, that was more important. And now I told my mom, I'm like, hey, Mom, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Sure.
Good
yeah.
job.
Well,
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of things in your marriage with an unbeliever that comes up where it's, even, the husband doesn't want to come to church.
Yep.
And then it's like, no, I don't want you to go to church either. And there are going to have to be boundaries that are set that you're saying like, no, I will obey the Lord
Yes.
Yes.
as I seek to be submissive to my husband, but mostly I submit to Christ.
Yeah.
Well, which is the first part of like all of the scriptures that talk about wives submit to your husband. It also it's predicated by submit yourselves to the Lord.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the first thing. And so, if it like your spouse is asking you to do something that is anti-biblical, right? Like your first obligation, your first responsibility is to submit to the Lord. And so that is I do think that is a way you bring holiness into your marriage. You submit to the Lord.
And I think that would be the question to ask in this situation, because everyone's going to be different. You need to listen to the Holy Spirit on those issues if you're in that situation. But are you bringing holiness to your marriage? Because that's the thing, is that if you're not careful, in the name of submission, in the name of peace at home, in the name of all those things, you can stop obeying the Lord.
Right.
And so I know you and I talk about the trap that men set for women. If the man is the unbeliever, a lot of times men will go, well, I will go to church, but I won't go to that church.
Oh yeah.
And then I watch this happen all the time.
Yep,
And so the wife's
it
like,
does.
fine, we'll go find a church together. And so then he goes and finds, and it is always a small church that is kind of dead or dying. And they're like, I don't know what he likes about this. And he's like, oh, I like the tradition and then as soon as he gets her established there for like a month, he stops going again.
Yeah.
And so he's actually taken her out of a vibrant church that she has community, she has women around her that are supporting her. She has all this incredible support network where she's growing in the Lord, and he takes her and plants her in like a semi-desert, of a spiritual situation.
Yeah.
And then is like, now I'm out again. And so it's like, wow. And I'm always looking at those women like, why wouldn't you just come back? And they're like, well,
Sure.
that's the church that we, picked together. I'm like, he's not going, so like, there's always that thing of like, how are you actually refueling and bringing holiness into your marriage? Like, I would encourage people to find a way to do that.
Well, and I think too, just like I mentioned earlier about the words thing, right? Like in those moments of disagreement, even when believing spouses have disagreements, right? Like this doesn't become an area that you say, well, I'm just following what the Lord says, and then you get really belligerent about it or really rude, then you become disrespectful, then you be like, all that can lead you down a whole other path of like, I'm just, I'm going to do what the Lord told me to do. And basically like, who cares what you think? Like that can be another trap, right? That we fall into. Like that's not bringing holiness into your marriage, right? Like you taking that kind of approach, and belittling your spouse or making your spouse feel, a certain way. Like none of that brings holiness into your marriage. And so I think that's a great overall framework to remember about conflict. I mean, I think this passage really is a lot about conflict if you think about it. Like how are we managing those points of disagreement and those potential tension points in a way that brings holiness into our marriages.
Yeah. And I think one thing for you asked, like, how can we bring holiness into our marriage? I think I'm a very much examples person. I want the physical, how can I live this out?
Yeah.
And so I think for the wife or the husband who is doing that, right? Holiness looks like serving them when they, shouldn't be served,
Sure.
right? I
Yeah.
say quotes because that's not what it's about. You're always supposed to love and serve your spouse, outserve them, right? That's the goal. And like doing your quiet time and setting that example for them and, being slow to anger. Like these are the fruits that you have because you're a Christian.
Right.
And that holiness in your life is going to bring out those kind of lifestyle acts, and those acts, right? That is what the holiness is. And so that's kind of what it looks like, of kind of the fruits of the Spirit that you're growing, actually living that out to them, not just inviting them to church and praying for them, obviously do that, but also living that out and being slow to anger, being patient with them, encouraging them, inviting them, out serving them, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Do you want to go on to your next question? Wow,
Sure.
friends, this is gonna be a long podcast today. We're only like literally halfway through our list
I think
here.
people are going to love it. I'm not going to lie.
So, and I'm going to ask this to Lucas because I know he has thoughts that we read through chapter 7 and we're like, there's so much in chapter 7, right? So, Paul has some things to say about divorce, not just in 1 Corinthians, but in, there's other areas of the Bible that there is also some mention about divorce. So, Lucas, do you want to walk us through? I know you kind of wanted to touch on some of this on Sunday and we didn't have the time.
Yeah, we had to cut a bunch of stuff out.
We did. Literally, we ran it and we were like, oh, this is so long. What are we cutting? So talk us through kind of what specifically does Paul say about divorce, but also what does Jesus say about divorce? And in that vein, it's like a triangle because the Pharisees come and ask Jesus about something that Moses said, right? So we've got three different things to filter here. Talk us through that.
Well, but what's cool about it is that they're all very consistent.
Right.
So, and they kind of expound one to another. So, like, Paul he goes through here in First Corinthians, but also in other places in the New Testament where he's saying, like, hey, if you get divorced, here's what you should do after that. Like, that's this section where he says, if you get divorced, and he kind of says this to like women, it's like, hey, if the husband puts you away, if he severs the relationship, that you should wait and try and be reconciled, right? But then what it says is once he marries, like once he remarries, once he starts to have sexual relations with other women, now you are no longer obligated to do that, right? And so he kind of releases you. But he says this, it's kind of like the not I, but the Lord kind of thing. And he's trying to give them good advice, because that's the whole thing about divorce is that, you know, there are just things in the Bible that people will ask me about, and they'll be like, how come the Bible doesn't talk about this? I'm like, because you were never intended for that. So if somebody says, you know, hey, you know, a man and a woman come together and they have a child, you know, it's like, that's great. And it's wonderful. And it's beautiful. And it's a miracle. And it's like, okay, well, what about miscarriage? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, none of that is supposed to happen. And so then we just do the best that we can. And so he's kind of going through that, how to do the best that you can. And so, but what we've taken in the Christian faith is a little bit of the pharisaical view of it, is that if there's an affair, it's a get out of jail free card. And Christians really don't know what to do with abuse, because there's no passage in the Bible that says if your husband hits you, you get a free pass. You know, like if your spouse is if your wife is verbally abusive, if she, like I know spouses that the wife just shuts down sex and marriage and says, we'll never do this ever again in our life. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well then what? You know, and so like we want these free pass things. And so we have kind of put together our own thing. And a lot of Christian pastors, they'll do the same thing. They'll say, oh, well, you know, like if there's an affair, it's a get out of jail free card. But also, you know, if you're abused, if you're sexually abused, if you're, you know, physically abused, that's also a free pass out. And it's like, but that's actually not scriptural, but it's good advice. Like here, not
Right.
I, but the Lord. If you are getting
Right.
abused at home, you need to leave that situation.
Yeah.
And so, but that's kind of what Paul is talking about. He's like, if you separate, like if you leave, you should try to be reconciled.
Yes.
And
So I just want to stop you right there. Okay, so again, with the issue of like abuse, any form of abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. So I just, because we did talk about this, like leaving for safety, right? So the Bible's not saying you have to stay with this person at all times
Right.
and be physically in their presence.
Right. You're
Okay.
obligated to stay in that situation. And I was worried about that because, like I said, we read that thing where it says, hey, you shouldn't deny sex to each other in marriage.
Right.
Because your bodies don't belong to yourself. And people who have been sexually abused, sexually assaulted, been in abusive relationships, they're like, that doesn't sound good because,
Right.
Exactly.
you know, the guy is going to manipulate that to say,
Right.
oh, now I get to do whatever I want with your body because it belongs to me.
Sure, then it's a power struggle.
Right. But then they don't read the second part of that, which is your body belongs to her. So if she wants your body 6 inches away from her, you better move. If
Yeah.
she wants you to just extend your foot, touch her for 10 seconds, and then roll over.
Sometimes 30. I mean, you know.
So they get the king size bit. So, but those are the things. It's always this push and pull. It's always mutual service. And so there's a lot of manipulation when it comes to that. But so when Jesus is confronted by the Pharisees, they say, hey, listen, what do you say to people? Because Moses gave us a certificate of divorce if there's an affair. And Jesus says, Moses did that because
a
you guys couldn't
concession.
handle it, as a concession, because
Yeah.
you guys couldn't handle it. But I say, let no man separate what God has put together. And I kept reading that and I'm like, where is that? And so I go looking for it. Where does Moses say you get a free get out of jail free card if somebody has an affair? And I'm like, because it's also like back then there was a lot of people that were having polygamy. So I'm like going, what exactly is happening? Like, you have Sarah have, has Abraham sleep with her handmaiden.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can have a baby.
Right. And there's no mention of, oh, now either one of you have a free pass to
Right.
divorce. Rachel, Leah. I mean, like, you pick it, and it's like, and so I go back and I find in Deuteronomy it is a similar passage that says, if you are separated and the man takes another wife, you are not obligated. So it's not a, and it says that about the wife too. If the wife takes another husband, you don't have to pursue her anymore. And so it's not like, oops, if there's one mistake,
Yeah.
you get a get out of jail free card. It's basically saying at that point, if someone separates from you and moves on from you and establishes a new relationship, and then he goes on in that same passage to explain that if a husband does that and the wife remarries and then she divorces that husband, he should not remarry her. And so that's the explanation in the passage. So there's nowhere in the Bible that Moses goes, yes, if somebody sleeps with somebody for the very first time, like if they have an affair, you get a hall pass, like you get a get out of jail free card, and you can feel free to divorce. But what I would tell to you, not the Lord,
Right. Not the Lord, but Lucas,
right, is
based on the scripture.
do your best.
Yeah.
Like that's what Paul says. He's like, not I, but the Lord. But he says, if somebody has moved on, if they remarry, whatever, you're not obligated. And he says, live at peace. And the word peace there is not normally what it is, like, shalom peace. It's a reset. It says to start back at one. So it's like, if you get divorced and they get remarried or do whatever, if they've moved on with their life, they divorce you, it's no fault of your own, and then it says they've moved on, then you can reset your life. So
You don't need to feel guilty about that.
yeah, you don't need to feel guilty about that. And like I said, and we're always learning. So if maybe you did a no-fault divorce, or you cheated on your spouse and then divorced them, and now you're coming to that knowledge, all you have to do is say, Lord, I repent of that, and I don't want
Right.
that to happen in my marriage again. I'm sorry for
Exactly.
that. Please forgive my sin.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, and a reminder again that like repentance is the changing of your mindset, right? It's changing of your mindset. And so there's always grace for that.
Yeah, that's our number one concern from you, is that you don't repeat that mistake.
Absolutely.
So I think the ultimate thing you guys are saying is like, obviously, like, abuse is way different. Get safety out of that situation, but ultimately reconciliation, right? If possible, of
Is top
course.
tier.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so even when
is
you
the
are
goal.
divorced too, whether it's abuse or not, when you are separated, if possible, reconciliation, right? But sometimes, again, they get remarried. Sometimes it wasn't your fault. Ultimately, we can't control everything. So live at peace, repent, all the things like that. But ultimately, it's always reconciliation, right? Is what Jesus is saying.
Yeah, and
It's
even
the,
if
the first goal. Yeah.
yes, and divorce very rarely is one person's fault. It sometimes happens.
Yeah.
But usually there's cracks in the foundation before that happens.
Right.
But also, even if it was your fault, even if, like I said, you were in a happily married marriage, if you were happily married, you fell into temptation, you had an affair, and then in that fit of passion, you divorce your wife, and now you're remarried and you have kids. I'm going, listen, you live at peace, but repent of that mentality that you
Yeah.
should, that's okay, and you should do that again.
Yeah. And, we know people who have had affairs and stayed married, right? So it isn't just
Right.
this like, that's the thing, right? Adultery is the one thing that lets you out of marriage. We know people who have been able to work through that and reconcile through
Yeah.
that. And so it's tricky. And I think it's hard because, again, all of that is very emotional. It makes us very sensitive. It's easy to garner offense when you read the Bible and you're like, oh, but you don't know my situation, right? Like, I think it's really easy to be like looking for, like you're saying, that list of the specific things that make it okay to leave a marriage, which does circle back to your, what if we approached marriage as we stay for the best and the worst, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you commit really for your whole life?
Well, I think that's reflected in divorce rates in countries where they have arranged marriages and divorce really isn't an option. So, like I said, there's so much to cover, but in verses 17 through 24, he talks about living as you were called.
Yep.
And it's basically, he's just saying, this is not an excuse. So if I'm married and God calls me, we're married. If God all of a sudden tomorrow said, like, go to Africa on the mission field, I couldn't be like, well, sweetheart, we're divorced because the Lord is like, wherever you are, wherever you got called, you shouldn't do that. But I did want to close with this. We got like 10 minutes, but sort of.
Probably longest episode ever. We don't actually have a time limit, but for your sake, we're trying to set one.
If you like more content, text me personally or leave it in the comments.
Leave it in the comments section below.
Come
Let
find
us
me at
know.
Step
What
one.
else would you like us to talk about? Send it in the comments.
I do want to talk one thing about chapter 8. Like
Okay, let's go.
We were talking about chapter 8, which is something that are temptations for Christians, but we said that they're not harmless, because they're not holy. And so what is something in your life that you had a realization of that, the thing that you used to believe was harmless and now you don't believe it is harmless anymore now that you've grown in your Christian faith?
Okay, I have one answer already.
Okay.
Can I do it before you keep going?
Yeah, what was the thing you thought you could handle?
So those are separate questions for me. But
Oh, okay.
the thing that, I'm going to be very specific here. And if you
I'm a
get
little scared.
if you get offended by this, this is why I am firm believer that whatever you are most defensive about is the thing the Holy Spirit is trying to convict you about. So just take that, however you want to take that. I loved the show Friends. I used to love the show Friends because you know why? It's funny. It's so, so, so funny. But do you know what else it is? Really, really immoral. Like, it absolutely glorifies completely immoral living.
It's funny in the same way the group chat is funny.
It's just, there are still parts of it that, like, we will randomly say quotes from Friends to each other all the time, right? Still not
doing
using
it
them right, Joe.
Joe.
The air quotes. So it's like there are parts of that that are so, so, so funny. And Friends is funny. It's just funny. Yeah, they're also sleeping around like crazy. Mm-hmm. They're also normalizing pornography, right? Like, and that to me, it was
There's
just
a naked guy that lives across the street that they
the
watch.
ugly naked guy lives across the street. Like, it's just like it's the lifestyle that set up is so immoral, right? And I would never ever be like, yes, I condone all of those actions. But you know what? It's so funny. It's so funny. And so that like created this, like, it's not that bad of a show, but like re-watching then later, I was like, oh no, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. Like, I got rid of all my DVDs. I used to have the whole series on DVD, and like I got rid of it because I was like, this is
You don't realize
really,
until you try and show it to your children.
well, we weren't trying to show it to our children. I just want
not
to
Friends.
clarify that.
But I mean, like, any show that, like, and there was, like, even, like, the Santa Claus. Like, we were, like, watching that. I was like, there's a lot of innuendo in this.
Inappropriate jokes in this. Okay. So that one for me was a big one that I felt like for a long time I told myself was harmless. And then also very specifically, it came out when I was post-college living with 3 female roommates, Grey's Anatomy. I used to love Grey's Anatomy. And again, it's not really about the medical stuff, guys. Like, that's not the main focus of the show if that's why you're justifying watching it. It's just that was a show for me that I became more and more convicted about the longer it was on, is that it got really like political leftist agendas, like this type of stuff in. And I was like, why am I even watching this?
Yeah.
Why am I even watching this? And I could feel in real time, like the Friends thing happened after a gap. But like I watched it all and it was funny and it was a thing that like my friends and I did, and then like took a break from it, and then I just came back and tried to watch it again. And I was like, oh, like it kind of smacked me in the face. But like the Grey's Anatomy thing just happened gradually over time. As I kept watching it, I was like getting this growing conviction about like, ooh, this is again very immoral living.
Yeah.
And it started pushing an agenda that I do not agree with.
I know. It was always funny because it'd be like the patient, it was so blatant and so on the nose. Be like, we got this patient who has this special circuit. I'm like,
Right,
oh
right.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So those are 2 very specific ones for me that like I started out with this isn't a big deal, or this is pretty harmless. It's just TV. It's just entertainment. So that was it's just. Those are 2 really specific ones for me.
Okay. I'm going to answer the first question and the second question. They're different. I'm going to answer the second question first because it goes along with yours. What
Okay.
could I handle, right? So I love true crime. Okay. A lot of girls, a
Why
lot
are
of
you
women.
a meme right now?
A lot of women love true crime. They love murder mysteries. They just love it. And I talked to Jonah about this. I think it's because, like, I don't understand. I've never had the thought of wanting to kill something, wanting to, like, even go hunting, like,
You've only been married 5 months.
I love to like, I'll go like shooting at Hillsdale with Jonah, but like I've never been hunting. I just don't have that desire, right? I know that's a guy thing, that's great. And so that's what me and Jonah talk about. He's like, well, I can understand how someone would get there if you let these thoughts run and
sure,
right?
yeah.
So, and I never knew that. And so I love true crime. I'm like, how could you? It's so interesting to me. How could you do that? Like, but I wanted to help these people or whatever. So I listen to these podcasts, watch these documentaries, and you're just like, wow, this is dark. This is so not like, obviously I'm not watching something that's immoral, but I'm watching things that happened that were immoral to people. And I'm
Sure,
watching
yeah.
dark things, and like it makes me paranoid, and I'm like, oh, this is not good, right? Like it's interesting to watch, like, your adrenaline's up maybe, and then you're like, how could they? It's so your curiosity and things like that. But if I'm fearing anything, if I'm filling my mind with darkness and dread and negativity, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
For some sort of entertainment, like
Yeah.
some thought, like, no. So that was something that I thought I could handle. And Jonah was the one that helped me realize, like, Megan, what the heck are you like? He hears, doing the dishes, and
Yeah.
he's hearing like this in the living room, and he's like, what are you watching?
What are you doing?
I just saw a video the other day that was, a reel where like the guy gets in his car. It says like when you go to move your wife's car and she's like out like mowing the grass, she's got headphones on, so she's clearly listening to something, and he turns on the car so it takes
Yeah.
the Bluetooth,
Yeah.
and she's like, and he'd cut off her feet and he cut off her hands, and I'm like, and they're just like he's like looking at the windshield through her to her, and she's like trying to get it off.
Yes. So that was something that I thought I could handle, that I did all throughout my college. Like, I thought it was so awesome. I'd like be driving to Arkansas 6 hours listening to this stuff, and then it's nighttime now, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not good.
Right.
Not good.
I've also heard though that the reason that women like murder podcasts is because it's planning pornography. They're like, I don't think that I could. It's so meticulous that they're like, I could have got away with it. That they think that they are so organized and so meticulous that they could actually get away
I
with
could
murder.
totally do this.
Yeah. So there's that. I couldn't handle it. I don't recommend that to anybody else. You'd have to be very careful about true crime if you're interested in it, because it's just all dark and negative. And I know that's some people's jobs, and that's different than like consuming this for entertainment, right? So there's that. And then something that I realized that made you believe, like the harmless thing. So this is going to be super controversial, okay? Me and Jonah, when we talked about Halloween, because I recently came on staff like about a year ago, right? Jonah loved Halloween, right? It was more the thing that you said, like, well, it's telling me no, like, why am I rebellious? And for him, it was fun. And so we started talking about, like, for our future children, like, because I was always kind of on the Halloween, like, no Halloween train when I was in college, understood from my mom, like I was kind of saying. Well, he brought up, what about Santa Claus and Christmas? Okay, and so I was like, no, like that was such a sweet part of my childhood.
It's like, I'll raise you.
And I was like, no, I loved it, and I believed in Santa, and and it was so sweet and happy, and I love the holidays, my family, whatever. And so, but for him, he was like, well, if we're not doing pagan Halloween, we're not doing pagan Christmas. And I was like, what? So we talked about that, but realistically, we were like, well, anything that is supposed to be centered towards Christ, which is what Christmas is
Right,
about,
right.
we shouldn't do that. And so me and him, obviously we don't have kids yet. This is an ongoing thing. We haven't done Santa Claus since we were like 7, right? So this isn't something we're currently in, but I would encourage you to think about that, because
Yeah.
we don't think when we have kids, we're going to teach them about, or I don't want to say teach them, because we want to be truthful about telling them, what their friends are going to experience, and they're
Right.
going to know what this is.
Right.
But being like, hey, like, we don't believe in Santa Claus, we believe in Jesus, and
Yeah.
this is what we're going to do instead, and making new traditions for that to make it still fun for them, but also we're celebrating Christ, and that's what our lives are about. So very controversial.
I
but
love that.
That's one that we're talking about.
Off the beaten path.
I love that. Okay, 2 reasons. When our girls came to live with us, they were 5 and 6. They were our first kids, right? So we did
Foster care.
we did Santa a couple times, and do you know what? It made me so mad, because everything, they were like, Santa brought me this. And I was like, no, I did. Right? No,
we
I
literally
went
tried to,
to
like-
4 stores to get you that thing that you wanted, and I'm getting no credit. I was just so mad about it.
There was one time I think I tried to take something away from Olivia, and she's like, you can't do that. Santa gave it to me. And I was like, I was this close.
Right. So I will say, like, we definitely, I mean,
We did that because we were going to have to give them,
exactly.
we thought we were going to have to give them back to
They
their
were
parents.
not our children, so we did continue Santa Claus for a little while. But what you said there is that there did come a point, and then our younger daughters, right, where it was like, hey, Christmas is about Jesus. Santa's a thing that other people celebrate. Santa's not real. Sorry, kids, if you're listening.
Timu Jesus.
Right. So it was like, oh my gosh. So, making those things, again, saying those things up front. We have also never done the Easter Bunny with our kids.
I know.
Like,
Yes,
we never,
yeah.
ever have done the Easter Bunny.
But also a sucker
ever.
because I want to pet a live reindeer. So we still go do Christmas things.
Sure.
Who
Then
doesn't
that's-
want to pet a live
Well,
reindeer?
like that's what we were talking. Like we can do traditions. We can make
Sure.
our family traditions. Like Saint Nick was a real person, right? Tell
Yeah.
them where things came from and the
There's a
holidays.
VeggieTale about it.
Is there really?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Shout out VeggieTales.
Kind of do these things for them and explain to them and
Yes.
teach them.
Yeah.
Our focus is on Jesus.
Exactly.
But this is still a fun time, and this is why people experience this to this day, right? So be
I think that's
open with
great.
them and honest, and that's just what we want to do. Because
I
Jonah
love that.
literally felt lied to. It was like, Megan, when I knew that Santa Claus wasn't real, I cried, and I was like, oh babe,
Oh,
Oh,
That makes
Jonah,
so
so
sad.
sensitive.
he is. He's just the best.
We
So-
love him. Shout
and
out Jonah.
He was like, I just can't do that to my kids, and I was like, that's real though. We
Yeah,
don't want.
for
We want
sure.
them to understand. We want them to
For
be
sure.
smart and wise.
We're always like, Santa's not real. Don't tell anyone else.
Right, like because you don't. Yeah,
It's fun
Yeah.
for your friends to believe in Santa.
We say it's a game people are playing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Lucas, what do you got? This is the longest podcast
An hour and
ever.
1 minute. Are the cameras still on?
I'll say what I
They
said
are.
on Sunday.
This is
which
amazing.
Is,
Music.
and movies. So like I will be very specific. So there are like I grew up liking sci-fi horror as long as it was not so much horror. I don't like gross horror. I don't like demonic horror. I loved the Alien franchise. So I'll say that this specific thing. So Alien franchise, and like I have memories of it watching it on TV, and I'm like, it was in our old house, so I had to be pre 10 years old. So,
That's scary for pre 10 years old.
and I don't know if it was
It
like they
scared
let
me
me.
the
Kathy
first
let
time
this
I watched
happen?
it.
I think it might have been on like TBS. You know, where like
Where they cut some of the super
all the
scary
words
stuff.
are like, "Oh, freaking orange slices, man!" You know, like they like dub over it.
Yeah.
But still, like I like sci-fi things, and so that's probably on the edge of sci-fi and the beginning of horror. And so like Predator, Alien, those kind of things. And I think the world building is kind of interesting. And so a lot of times I will justify things by like, oh, this is an interesting world building, and really, it's horror. And so they came out with a new series on Amazon or FX or something like that. But it's the Alien franchise, but it's about the robots, the synthetics that are. And I'm like, I want to watch this all day long, and I can't. I can't even attempt to do it because I'm like, I don't want to get back into that because it's going to tempt me back into
Yes.
everything else. So I just don't like horror films. I've never, I watched The Exorcist, I think in college, and it gave me the ick. And like people watched crazy ones that are like the gross ones where things
Yeah.
are like, it's so gross, zombie movies. And so I don't like it. Like there were some of them that I was watching, and there are some movies that I loved that I thought were brilliant pieces of cinema. Like one of my favorite movies of all time was Kill Bill. And I can't watch
Quentin
it anymore.
Tarantino. Yeah,
I can't watch
that's
Tarantino
rough
anymore.
now.
And so, but there were things that were good movies. They were good cinema, but they weren't good messaging.
Yeah.
And so, the more Holy Spirit I put in my life, it ruins it for me, and I can't watch it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like going back to the question of, when do you tell yourself I can handle it? Just because I can handle it doesn't mean it's harmless. So that's very
make
true.
believe.
But I also think that sometimes we convince ourselves we can handle things that we really can't. And I like
Yeah.
people who say they like horror movies, horror, that genre, right? Like I just like feeling scared, or I like I can handle it because I know it's not real. I think that there is something there that like, honestly, can you? Like, can you? Because you're not supposed to see that kind of stuff. Like you
Yes.
were saying, you're not made to digest that kind of like visual content, right?
And it depends because, and again, I might mature in this later on, but I always tell, we'll watch Star Wars stuff, with the girls. And Star Wars, if you die in Star Wars, it's because there's a laser beam that touches your armor, and then there's a little black spot right here, and then you just fall over. It's like there's no blood, there's no gore, and it's not that kind of thing. And so, versus if you watch, Saving Private Ryan, it's very graphic, and so it's just always that thing I'm always questioning is what part of me likes this.
Yeah.
Like if I want to watch a horror film where someone gets their head chopped off and bleeds out, it's like what part of me wants to see that,
Mm-hmm.
and why doesn't that scare me that there's a part of me that wants to see that?
For sure.
Well, and I think
For
a lot
sure.
of people, I know we're so over, but I think a lot of people don't realize that what you put into your mind goes into your soul and into
Yeah.
your heart.
Yeah.
And then out of that, your lifestyle actions change, your thoughts change, and your words change too.
Absolutely.
And so it's so incredibly important. And you're also opening doors.
Yeah.
To the enemy, right? To
Right.
the spiritual realm. When you go watch a horror, the freaking Exorcist,
Yeah.
right? Like, I know people like, there's a girl at Next, we're talking about the horror movies or whatever, she loves them. And I was like, what? Because I'm just not a person like that. True crime though, not horror, right? So anyways.
I prefer murder.
different perspectives. They're both bad.
Premeditated.
But she was just like, oh, I love it. It's so awesome. Like, I just love horror movies. I love watching The Conjuring, da-da-da. Because we're talking about Next, what's your favorite thing during fall? And she was saying that. And I was like, you're so crazy. And she was like, no, it's awesome. But she was like, I have to go watch Disney movies after with my friend because, like,
You feel gross.
you can't handle it.
No, because
And
it's
I'm
like
guys,
terrifying.
you shouldn't. Like, this is not.
No, it's so true.
This proves to
It's
you
so
why
true.
you shouldn't, right?
One,
There's-
one
yeah.
of the turning points for me on that was a movie called The Event Horizon, which is about a spaceship that basically travels through space, but they think it's like a warp drive, but it actually jumps through dimensions, and it went through a hell dimension. So of course it's possessment, and it's so bad. And I literally went home and showered afterwards, and I was like, I cannot get this out of my head.
Yes.
Well,
So that
and
was a
that's
big change.
yes. In college, one time I watched The Silence of the Lambs, and I was in college, right? So I was in my 20s, early 20s. I watched The Silence of the Lambs, and I'm not kidding you. I slept with my light on for like 2 weeks because that's not even a horror film. Like, that's a psychological thriller,
I
right?
love those.
These,
I read all those
These
books.
labels,
Yes, I love those
right?
books.
Like, these labels convince us we can handle this stuff. And I wasn't by myself. It was like we just watched it, and
But that's the
in
thing,
a
you're
dark basement,
Right?
You're
Right?
with friends,
Like,
you're like,
why?
ha, 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 and then you go home and you're like, oh my god.
I know.
No,
I was
literally.
very disturbed, and I told everybody that on Sunday. Like, I'm really sensitive about horror, like that kind of scary stuff. I just don't like it. But I remember watching that, and like I said, probably I was 20 or 21 years old, so I was an adult. I wasn't like super impressionable little teenager.
Right.
I was like, that terrified me. I did. I went home and slept with my light on for at least a week because I was like, I can't. I kept
Yeah,
seeing.
you can't unsee things.
I kept seeing that.
I'm going to drop a bomb and then we're going to conclude this because congratulations. We always advertise this as the 167, so there's an hour of your week.
That you spend with the podcast. What are you doing with the other?
We finally reached an hour of the podcast.
Hey, woo!
I will tell you that the last thing that I changed my mind about was drinking. So I didn't drink all through my life. I got to college, Bible college, 21, 22 years old. And I was like, it became a point of pride for me. I was like, I've never drank. And so I decided that I was going to do that. And, like I said, we've been a part of churches where that's glorified. It's like, let's go have a beer and drink. And I'm always like, what is the part of me that likes this?
Yeah.
What is the part of me that thinks that I need this to be uninhibited? And, so I challenge you with that. But we're going to wrap this up. I hope that you've enjoyed the full hour of the 167.
Thank you for sticking in there with us. If you're still here, let us know if you made it through the whole
Comment down
episode.
below.
And if
Comment.
you didn't stick with us, you're not hearing this, so who cares? Quitter. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Ladies, thank you for being here. Of
course.
We'll see you here next time on the 167. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.